Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Rabid Dog House, where we like to discuss lost or forgotten horror gems with a little bit of bite. I'm Justin, and tonight we are going to discuss 2008's TransSiberian. Directed by Brad Anderson and starring Emily Mortimer, Woody Harrelson, Kate Mara, Eduardo Noriega, and Ben Kingsley. After completing a Christian mission in China, Jessie and Roy decide to take the train from Beijing to Moscow to reconnect with each other before returning home. Jessie is a bit more cautious around others, while people person Roy befriends seasoned travelers Carlos and Abby. After an unfortunate error causes Roy to separate from the group, wary Jessie must rely upon the quiet Abby and overly flirtatious Carlos in a foreign country. A sudden crime leads Jessie right into the path of a suspicious detective eager to find out what Jessie is hiding at any cost. Trans-Siberian is for the horror fan that enjoys an anxiety-driven piece that peels away layer after layer of suspense within a claustrophobic setting. Also joining me tonight is my amazing co-host, Zena Dixon. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House, where we like to discuss lost or forgotten horror gems with a little bite. Again, I'm Justin, and with me is the amazing, talented, wonderful Zena Dixon, the real queen of horror. How you doing tonight, Zena?
I'm doing great, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I have been looking forward to discussing this one for a while on the show. I love Trans-Siberian. As always, everybody, we're going to start off with our no spoiler reviews. Then we will let you know when we're going to do spoilers, which then we'll go into performances, suspense, and then we'll discuss the ending. But no spoilers off no spoilers as of right now. I'll just say this movie was a movie that I had no interest in watching. It was a friend of mine, his turn to pick movie night. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. Watched it, and I just thought it was fantastic. It has this great buildup of suspense, but already at the beginning of the movie, I love the idea, like, when traveling anyway, people always like, oh, I want to go on a vacation. My best friend, she loves going on vacations. Me, I love vacations too, of course, but I also get a little nervous with traveling, let alone the inherent sort of dangers that come with traveling in a foreign country. Traveling in a foreign country, not speaking the language, traveling in a foreign country where the laws are a bit different. So it's already this movie, it's like it's ingrained in the movie that you're traveling. It's this couple, they're a nice couple. He's very much a people person. She's not standoffish, but she's
Mhm.
cautious. Throughout the movie, you kind of find she's a reformed bad girl. So you can see why she's a little bit more wary of people. But already, just the idea of being on this claustrophobic train setting, and I'm nowhere near like Roy. I never had like an obsession with trains going up, although my older brother Brian had an amazing train set that I was super jealous of. For the idea of trains, I think it's a romantic idea. I think I would enjoy that, but also I don't know if I would enjoy it like for a week or two in a foreign country, and you're hearing horror stories. So anyway, the movie gets going, and it's on, no pun intended, this track, and then all of a sudden it's one of those movies that you kind of shift gears, then you shift gears again, and there's this just buildup of tension that I think is so well done and well crafted, and you relate to these characters. You relate to Jessie. I think Emily Mortimer is great. Woody Harrelson, I think, has proven to be a really great actor, and he is very versatile. But I still even think in this movie he's against type, like what I always picture when I think of Woody Harrelson. I mean, I grew up, the first movie I ever really saw him in was White Men Can't Jump. So that will always be Woody Harrelson for me, as well as like Cheers. And I know that he's played some very dramatic roles, but this movie definitely, he's very he's a conservative Christian, wanting to do good things. And I think he's believable in it. And I think he's charming and endearing. Emily Mortimer, she's this actress. I loved her from the first time I saw her in Scream 3. She does the voice of one of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies. So I love, she's a person that I've always enjoyed. And I think they really make a believable couple in this
Yeah.
situation. Kate Mara's great. They meet this couple that they're a little bit more of a seasoned traveling couple, but there might be something there.
Mhm.
And anyway, the whole movie comes together. in a great suspenseful way. But Zena, this was your first time, I think, watching it. What did you think of Trans-Siberian?
I loved it, which we were talking about a little bit before we started recording. I loved it because it felt like a fresh thriller that still has like an intense atmosphere. I really didn't know what to expect. Even reading the synopsis, just like, oh, okay, we'll see. And then from the opening, it's just like, oh, what's this? It kind of like sets the tone. So I really love that. And I love the characters. I love Jessie. I feel like kind of what you said. I feel like she's relatable in a way where it's just like, she is very I don't feel like she's standoffish like you said, but she's cautious when it comes to new people. Because I know like when I'm traveling like with my husband, I'm a little bit cautious when it comes to people. You never know. You never know what's going on. Whereas with my husband, he's very friendly. So he's not as excited as Roy with trains, but I like them as a couple. I feel like they're a great match, where it's just like it's like a perfect kind of fit. And you can see that, Jessie, she is figuring some stuff out and she'll get there eventually. And I have a theory with her, which I'll get to a little bit later with that. But overall, I really, really loved it. I loved Kate Mara in this. I think that she is, there was something about her in this one that's very intriguing. Normally I'm used to see, I think not, it's not the first time I've seen her, but one of my favorite roles of her is when she was in American Horror Story, Murder House, the first season, because she was terrible. I love that it kind of takes us on like this journey. And I don't know what it is about trains, but I find trains creepy. I find them very creepy. I would never do that. Like, I mean, in hindsight, it seems like, oh, it could be relaxing. You kind of just, with your boo, just hanging out. You could do reading, you could play a video game, watch a movie. But then, I realized, okay, other people who you don't know, they're going to be sitting with you. And I know it's like, oh, well, make new friends. I don't like new friends, Justin. So I don't like new
No new
friends.
people.
Yeah, because this movie kind of tells why. Like it shows why, because it went from 0 to 100 real quick. And I absolutely love that because once stuff was going down, it was like it was kind of like too late to kind of go back, if that makes sense, where it's just like you're already this deep, you got to keep going. So, but yeah, I don't know. I really did enjoy it. I watched it twice. I usually do that with the movies that we talk about. I watch it once just to get like a feel for it, and then I watch it again just to see if there's anything that I missed. And each time it's just such a ride, fun. It's such a ride, just about these strangers on a train, and there's stuff with money, there's drugs, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it all I feel blends very well. So I overall, to answer your question, I loved it.
I'm so glad. And from here on out, everybody, spoilers, spoilers, you've been warned. Go watch the movie, come back, spoilers. So much to dig into. First I'll say I agree. Well, I don't know that I would do trains or I would travel by trains. I will say it's appealing to me because I'm not a big fan of flying. So I always thought, well, if I had to travel, I could maybe do by train. Although the thing I really don't like about flying is being the claustrophobic sort of setting of it. And I feel like, well, trains are going to kind of do the same thing. So, and you're very intimate with people, like you're in rooms like your little bunk with other people. And I think that's really how it is, not just in like on the Trans-Siberian Express, I think that's how it is. But I'll jump into Kate Mara later, but I also want to say it's funny that you bring up American Horror Story and her character in it because I really like her performance in this movie. And I think she's always really good in everything that she does. But because of characters that she plays, I always am sort of at an arm's length with her. So watching it again, watching Trans-Siberian again for this, I was sort of like, I really do like, well, in Trans-Siberian, I really respond to her. And I think it's because her character is very honest, even though she is suspicious,
Mhm.
deceptive, she's got an agenda. She's honest about like she could be with or without this other couple. She could be with or without Carlos. So I can actually respect that. I always say to people, like, I can support anything you do is just as long as you're honest about it to me and to yourself, I'll support whatever. If you can being the truth. And in this character, I think she's really honest. Whereas in like American Horror Story and stuff, she's so like you know how it is. I won't spoil it either, but I know what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I always with her have been sort of standoffish, so I enjoyed her more rewatching it. Like, okay, I do like her as an actress, and I think maybe she's just that good that it makes you kind of not like her because of other things she's done. One thing I really like about this movie too, getting into sort of a theme of it, are the sort of like Russian dolls. You know, Carlos presents Jessie with these Russian dolls that innocently enough look like they're just these dolls, you know, the kind that start and you open up, there's a smaller one, a smaller one, small one. Now, that's obviously very thematic to this film. I mean, that's what this movie is. It starts as one thing, and then you gotta kind of keep pulling away at the layers. And also, like you said with Jessie, well, in general, you said it's one of those movies. You're right. Once you kind of go to there's a point of no return. You can't go back. That's another theme. It's the theme of lies. It comes up with Ben Kingsley's character, where he says, you can't go back. Once you start telling a lie, you can't go back. And
Hmm.
I love that about this movie because that adds to the tension and the suspense. And this movie was very well praised by critics at the time, but it didn't have like a huge box office. I just don't think it ever got like a really wide release. And I never hear anybody talking about this movie. And again, when it was presented to me to watch for the first time, I very much was like, I could take it or leave it. I was like, not having seen it yet. Like, well, I'm not really interested. It doesn't sound like my kind of thing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 100% my kind of thing. You know, this strong woman at the center of the movie who is flawed, who is conflicted. And I guess we'll kind of start with performances and wrap it around. But I think that Emily Mortimer is wonderful in this movie. She is believable as this sort of reformed bad girl. She gives my favorite quote, like all-time favorite quote. I use it like at least once a week, which is kill off all my demons and my angels might die too. I mean, I think that's still like on my Facebook as like quotes, you can have like quote section. And I think it's such a great quote. And I love that it's in reference to her smoking. Like, but she makes a
Hmm.
good point, well, it's a Tennessee Williams quote, but like it's such a great thing, like with people who are trying to like judge you or make judgments, which is very much her character. Like she's seen things, she loves Roy unconditionally, but she knows that she's seen a different side of the world than maybe he has. And in order, if she becomes all good as he like, not that he's trying to push on her, but like he wants her to be the best she can be. But there's a point to be made. He's in love with this person. If she changes herself, she will no longer be that person.
Hmm.
Kill off all my demons, my angels might too. The things you like about me might disappear if I get rid of all the things you don't like about me. I think that's really interesting. And that gets to the heart of her character. Um, and I mean, I'll get more into her with when we get into the suspense and everything, but I loved her character. Woody Harrelson, fantastic. Like I said, he has that sort of charm, again, he's against type. Again, White Men Can't Jump, Natural Born Killers. These are the movies I have been so familiar. So to see him as this very blue collar Christian who just wants to bring out the best in everybody, and he loves trains, and of course he's also not super sensitive like when they get separated, and he's sort of just like, it's okay, I'm having fun, I'm with my trains, and she's been worried about him all night. That's his character, and he does it really well. I also think, like, I kind of already got into Kate Mara, loved her in this movie, having a new appreciation for her. And Eduardo Noriega, who plays Carlos, he has that right sort of overly flirtatious element, a little bit of danger. He
Hmm.
recognizes Jessie as this kindred spirit. But he has a quality about him that's a little dangerous. And ultimately we find out in the end, like, he's not that great of a guy. And then
Hmm.
landing with the other, rounding out the main cast, Ben Kingsley, thought he's always amazing in everything he does. He adds this sort of depth and quietness to all of his roles, I feel like. And this is just another one where he is menacing. He's also charming in his own way too. When he's like joking with Roy, you can see the camaraderie. But there's
Hmm.
also this really dangerous element underneath, and Ben Kingsley has no problem walking that line. But as far as the performances go, the acting, all that, what did you think?
So starting with Woody Harrelson, I love him. I think that he's just one big teddy bear. So this was kind of different from for me, seeing him, because I think the last thing that I watched him in where he plays Tallahassee,
Zombieland.
Zombieland. I was gonna say I
Yeah.
Zombie. That's a
I love
show.
him in Zombieland though. I love him in that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. He's just so powerful and fun in it. So yeah, seeing him as this kind of like he seems very cookie cutter, he
Yeah.
follows the rules. And I think that that's something that Jessie needs, or that she wants, and you know what, it happens. But yeah, I like him a lot. I love that he's excited again about trains. I love that he's excited about traveling. He seems like he's absolutely all about Jessie, which is great, because we'll get to it, but even when he says to her, no matter what you tell me, I'm still going to love you. Where she's like, yeah, it's like a life or death situation, but no matter what she tells you, So yeah, love him in that role, love him in this role. And then Emily Mortimer, I always love seeing her. Just recently, I just watched Scream 3 again. So seeing her, pop up on screen, that's a lot of fun. So okay, I like her character, but there were some scenes where she was kind of like, I was ready to strangle her in some ways, because it's just like, at this point, just tell the truth. Tell the truth. But I mean, that probably would have gotten everyone killed. So good thing that she didn't, say anything. So don't listen to me. I guess I just get overwhelmed when it just felt like we were in a kitchen and it was getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And it's just like, we need to tell the truth. But yeah, I love her performance. I love the fact that when she first sees Carlos, kind of like you said, it's like they see each other. They're kind of the same. He sees something in her. And already as a viewer, we could see there's an attraction, and I was, looking, I'm like, oh, something's going to happen between these two, so with that. And then Abby, kind of did already touch on her. Like you, I feel the same way. Whenever I see her on screen, I already feel like there's going to be something going on with her, something real weird, So I always expect that. But honestly, I I don't feel like, Abby is as innocent as Jessie was saying, Yes, she's a young girl who just got wrapped up, with a guy that she shouldn't have, but she knew what she was doing, with that. But I kind of like her role. I kind of like the fact that where it's like she sees that Carlos sees Jessie, and she's just aware, because this is clearly not the first time that he's done something like this, so he's used to it. And Carlos, is it Eduardo Noriega?
Noriega. Hmm.
Yeah, he did a great job as well. He really did come off as a bad boy. First you do think that he's this nice guy. I mean, there's just so many things where it's just like I was yelling at the screen telling Jessie to get out of the room when he was taking a shower, when she was trying to peek at his butt, so it's just little things like that. Yeah, then Ben Kingsley, oh my gosh, love seeing him on screen. I knew that his role was going to be a lot bigger. Because at first I just thought, oh, just a friend in passing. No. So yeah, overall, I feel like the cast is great. It's clearly not a big cast at all, but I
Right.
feel like it felt very fulfilling. Like there was always something that was happening. So I can really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really do like, you kind of mentioned Jessie and telling the truth, and yes, you want her to just, do it, but I love it because it plays on our anxieties because we're getting
Mhm.
stressed like y you're going to have to tell this truth, and the word like the more lies you tell, even though we know well, I think it's interesting because the character of Jessie, so she ends up going off with Carlos at one point and she ends up attacking him. And like we said, everybody, spoilers, she kills him. And it is sort of left on this note of now he clearly she had said no. At first she was into it, then there was like a rafter falls and she's sort of like, wait, I can't. She says
Mhm.
no, and that's enough. And he keeps pushing for it. But he's like laughing and joking. So you think maybe it's a language thing or just a
Right.
cultural thing. And then, she ends up, you don't, you think she's going to get harmed. And in fact, she ends up taking him out. And in a way that for a second, you almost doubt would he have gone that far? He was taking it too far, but would he have hurt her that far? So you don't know. And
Mhm.
that's what's great, I think, about Emily Mortimer's performance is that you have to still want this girl to not get in trouble when she's done what you think at this point a sort of ambiguous thing. We don't know, did she need to kill him? And it's not till the end of the movie where you find out that he does have assault on that kind of assault in his records that you're like, no doubt about it. She did
Mhm.
he was gonna take it too far. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good that she did what she did. She did in self-defense, and self-defense doesn't maybe necessarily always have to be, she's half naked, thrown on the floor, injured. She just didn't get injured. She needed to do self-defense. It just didn't get to the like life threatening, because he would have done something. But anyway, my point being, so she does this event, and you know that she's right, but because she's telling these little lies, you get nervous that Ben Kingsley's not going to believe her because of one lie, even if the rest is all truth. And so you do want her to just tell the truth. But I think it's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting dynamic, her and Carlos, but also her and Abby. That's one of my favorite moments in the film, because you can see that Abby is suspicious of people, and you're right, she's not some waif. She's not this ingenue. She's seen the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so you don't know how she's going to take Jessie being nice to her. And I really like this sort of chemistry between the two women. One older, not old, but in her
Right.
30s, versus one in her who's 20. And she does, once Abby realizes that Jessie is not maybe this goody goody Christian girl who's like trying to save the world. She's instead this like bad girl
Mm-hmm.
who's trying to do the right thing in life. She can respond to her. And I love the moment when they're like off the train, walking, talking to each other, connecting, but also that's juxtapositioned with Carlos and how he's representing the past.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to this moment then. So the train's been going on. We're still in the front half of the movie, and Woody Harrelson gets separated from the group. And I love that, like you said, Ben Kingsley, he was only in the beginning, and then he pops up later. But you kind of think that Woody Harrelson is having, just a great time, even though he's been left behind. Because at first you don't know what happened to him. You see him in this ominous moment with Carlos, and you're like, did Carlos
Oh
maybe
no.
do something? And it's not until like another 20 minutes of film before you finally find out he's okay. And not only
Mm-hmm.
is he okay, he's been just having a ball while Jesse's been worried. And I like that because, again, it's just that little anxiety fluttering at the background that the movie does really well. But so she's annoyed, and so she goes off with Carlos, and that's when what happens. But it's again, you're getting to see, though, all throughout this, the sort of Russian culture in the background. And there's like the woman on the bus who doesn't want her picture taken. You're seeing this beautiful church, and it's these moments then turn to blood red when it's like running down his face. Then right before that, before they got on the bus, you see at the hotel, the cops are like beating up this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand Jesse's like need to not necessarily lie, but because of her past, you know why she's not going to respond to authority figures. And those were, American authority figures, let alone now these Russian ones who are not seem to be bound by anything. They will beat the crap out of you if they think you've done something. So I get, Jesse's like hesitation, and it does give you the anxiety of like, she can't just go to the police officer and hopefully tell her story. She doesn't know how they're going to react because it's broken Russian. She speaks
Right.
English. Anyway, so I just love the suspense from all that, let alone then once we did find out Woody Harrelson's gone on his own, but he met Ben Kingsley, and that's how it gets introduced back in. And so he's so familiar with them, but he is sharp, Ben Kingsley, and he knows that something's off with this
Mm-hmm.
story that Jessie is telling about what happened when she separated from the couple. We know she just killed Carlos. Now we'll get to the ending when we get to the ending, but again, I think this movie really crafts those ideas, and it is a feeling of anxiety that you tend to get as the viewer in a good way. It's part of the experience so that you can completely relate to Jessie, but I think she really anchors this movie that makes it all work. Like when she realizes those little Russian dolls, wait a minute, they have drugs in them. And so
Right.
she's like
Oh,
going there trying to get rid of them, then trying to get rid of them at the like throw them out. But then the stewardess, I don't know if she'd be a stewardess on a train, but like
yeah.
is like trying to stop her. Then Ben Kingsley has them. And but I love the relief that I feel as an audience, as well as Jessie feels. I've been in that moment, not in that moment and not to that extreme, but those moments in life where you're trapped, and I may have not told a lie, but I get to a point where I think there's nowhere to turn, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to trust my partner. I have to
Right.
trust the person in my life. I can't lie to this person, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what Jessie does with Roy. So she ends up telling me, I love the relief I feel when she finally like talks to him,
Right.
and Roy goes to tell.
Oh man, it like you, a lot of it gave me anxiety, but in the best way because it's just
Yeah.
like it kept me very curious. Again, this movie is not what I thought it was going to be, but in a good way, you know. So I can't even think of the last time I watched a movie like this that gave me this much anxiety because it's from the drugs, it's from the lying, it's from like these secrets. Even when because you already spoke about it with Roy when he's off the train walking with Carlos, I thought something horrible happened to him because it just cut. And I thought I missed something. So even when I watched it the second time around, it's just like, I see what you did there. And then just so when we finally heard from Roy after, you know, they confused him with someone else, it was just kind of like, what a relief, right? But then she goes, Jessie, she goes on this walk or out with Carlos. That is such, it sounds weird that the blood dripping down Carlos' face is such a beautiful shot, but
It
it was
is
such a
though.
beautiful shot. Yeah, with the just the pure white and then the red dripping down. And I don't know what it was, even though Carlos, when he was trying to attack Jessie, even though he was laughing, I felt like I just always felt like in my gut he would have done something. You know what I mean? And then who know, I'm not saying that he would have done something to hurt, like kill her, but I think he would have done something just as worse, you know? So it's just kind of like, because it kind of was, things were starting to come undone. You know what I mean? Even when Carlos and Abby, they left the train to go with Jessie to wait, you know, saying, well, it's dangerous for a woman. And it's just kind of, they just seemed iffy. You know what I mean? And I don't know if, again, I don't know if I would feel comfortable. Like, yeah, you're already in a foreign spot, you're separated from your, you know, you're from your partner. That's scary stuff. Anything could have happened with that. I love that, you know, I love that part. But then again, this again, while I was saying I don't like new friends. I don't like new friends because of this. And even when the cops were searching the room and how aggressive they were getting with this one guest, just a lot of stuff that's going on. I felt like the performances balanced and well with it. You know, again, as someone, I read the synopsis, but I didn't know what to expect. I feel like this is one of those movies that I feel like the more you watch it, the more you'll see, but you'll still have anxiety. So
Every
if
time.
that answered the question. And oh,
Yeah.
and I love the part as well where Jessie and Abby, they were getting to know each other. And even when Jessie killed Carlos, it was just like she clearly is a bad girl. It's still in her, you know? And it was just like at this point, I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was going to be the other way around or that she would have gotten away. And it was just like, it was brutal to watch, but it was just like, I think that he, like, again, I'm pretty sure that he was going to do something. So there's that. I mean, there's just so much. I do have a question, and I'll wait till we get further. I do have a question with Roy as far as it goes with Carlos. Like, want to get your opinion on that. But yeah, just with the performances and just like the thrilling of it all was just such a great mix. Like even again, if it's your first time watching, if you watch it more than once, I definitely feel like this is the type of movie you can definitely watch more than once.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to say to what you said, I think that's why one of the things that's great about horror movies in general and why we love them, it teaches us to not trust everybody so easily, like Roy. Like you were saying, like when you're like no, we're like no new people, or I think a part of it's because of a lot of the horror movies
Hmm.
we've watched. It's taught us to be a little bit on guard. That doesn't mean we're infallible, but like it means we are a little bit more on guard. But yeah, I think that Trans-Siberian is a pure psychological thriller. It's a pure psychological examination of somebody and the traps we sort of get into, but the traps that we put ourselves into when we do lie.
So real quick, can we just touch on Kolzak?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, I just feel like he just kind of showed up. He showed up all like I was pretty intimidated by him. He looked like he was serious business. And that's like, if for some reason, say if someone would have forgot seeing Ben Kingsley's character in the beginning, it's just like, oh, he's just a passenger. But then it's just like that guy is clearly not just a passenger. Then looks like there's something going on there, you know. We didn't really hear too much from him. I love the fact that he was kind of like a silent partner. Kind of sucks what happened to him, but someone had to take the blame. But yeah, I kind of wanted more of him. He seemed like very different from Ben Kingsley's character. Like Ben Kingsley's character seemed like he was the one that was like really thinking about making like the moves, like you know, the straightforward moves. this guy just kind of wanted to get rid of the problem, which he felt like Roy and Jessie and Abby were all the problem, and he was ready to get rid of them. And I mean, maybe, not saying I wanted that to happen, but maybe it would have been less messy, compared to the outcome, which I know we're gonna get into that. But yeah, I kind of liked his character. I know that he really didn't talk too much, so I'm curious, like, what's your thoughts on him?
Well, I think it actually works well into segueing into the ending, but with him, so we start off, we see the beginning of the movie, Ben Kingsley is being a detective, helping out these younger detectives try and figure out what's going on. Some guy,
Hmm.
Russian mob guy, has been like stabbed in the head. And that's when we kind of then back away and follow Roy and Jessie through their sort of adventures, and which are all engaging and interesting. And then Kingsley kind of pops back up, and it comes out, he's sort of this puts off this front, Ben Kingsley's character, of this sort of older fella, wizened to the life of living in Russia. And he, but at the same time, he mentions that these trains that they're on are sort of a front for mules, which now it's clicking with Roy and
Hmm.
Jessie that maybe Abby and Carlos were, which it seems like they were, which we come to find out Ben Kingsley's character is sort of playing both sides. He is
Hmm.
an officer, but he's also working for this mob guy, which he's kind of saying through his what he explains, that there's like this Russian saying that like you either leave on a private jet, or you leave 6 feet under, or however you
Hmm.
phrased it. So enter the character of Holsack. I think I might be saying it wrong, but he, on the other hand, he's a great foil for Ben Kingsley's
Hmm.
character, because whereas Ben Kingsley is insightful, being a more traditional detective, even if he's doing it for whatever's going to be the best personal gain for Ben Kingsley. Kolchak is just the muscle. He's this Russian guy's, the mob's muscle. He is there to, yeah, just do whatever he's got to do to get the money, get this. He's constantly threatening Ben Kingsley's character, like, you know what I'm going to have to do to you if you don't fix this. And he's not about nuance, whereas Ben Kingsley is about nuance. So what happens is we get to Jessie and Roy show Ben Kingsley's character and Kolchak that they have these drugs on them that were not intentional. And Ben Kingsley is a detective, and apparently a good one, because he
Hmm.
knows, even though Jessie lied, he knows why, like he can believe why she did. But because we don't know off stage, Abby is being tortured and is
Hmm.
telling, hey, no, I did get off the train with Jessie. Oh, I don't know where they went together. So, he and Kolchak are kind of like, well, there's some holes in your wife's story. And, we now know that what Jessie said isn't true. And that's now, so the train, by the way, Roy and Jessie wake up, and the back half of the train has been detached. So it's just the front of it being, going, and Jessie almost falls off the train. And it's one of those shocking moments. The first time I saw it, I'm like, is this really happening? What is going
Right.
on? And it all makes sense after the fact, but at first you're just like, what? And so they're taken off. And what I think is like, I remember the first time I saw it, I know how I am in winter and snow, and the thought of being barefoot in snow, it is an effective way to make sure they don't escape or try to run, because
Yeah.
frostbite, everything. So they take Jessie and Roy down to Abby, and they're going to get this confession. Kolchak, yeah, is very menacing, very threatening. He tells Ben Kingsley, if you don't figure this out, I'm going to have to kill you, right? Like, he's a
Hmm.
pure villain, but I think he's more muscle, more, I've got a job to do and I'm going to do it no matter what. And his way of maybe sometimes solving the problem is like, he wants to shoot Roy in the head, and he's like, that'll get her to talk. Ben Kingsley's like, shoot him in the knee. That'll get him to
Hmm.
talk, get her to talk. There's two different ways to handle this.
Right.
And, Ben Kingsley's is the way, because he's right. Once, if Kolchak were to do that, what motivation does Jessie have? I mean, I guess to stay alive, but again, I guess they both have arguments, but I do love then, yeah. So you have the whole climax happens. Jessie finally, either, she's right there in front of Roy. You want her to tell the truth, but I think that because of her past, she is sort of like, I will lose him. Like, he can say whatever he wants right now, Roy. This could be the thing, especially now knowing I've told some lies. She doesn't trust people completely, and Roy is the closest to a person that she can trust.
Hmm.
And So what happens is, they decide, Roy's like, fine, let's go, let's run. I think it's a really great heart pounding moment. You need a character like Kolchak
Yeah.
to have the sort of flow of the chase scene and the flow of, it comes to a point where he is now in charge. He has the gun, and Ben Kingsley is like, tell the truth, tell the truth. So she finally admits Roy's been knocked out, finally admits, I killed Carlos. Like, I did it. I did it. And he knows she's telling the truth. But Kolchak doesn't have that sort of insight. That's
Hmm.
not his method. That's not his way. He says, I don't believe this girl could do this. Ben
Right.
Kingsley knows the truth, and he knows it because he's that good of a detective. So again, I think the character of Kolchak is a great foil to Ben Kingsley. Both different methods, maybe effective sometimes, definitely not I think there are softer ways, and I think Ben Kingsley is the smarter of the two. But I'm
Hmm.
not saying that Kolchak's not smart. He's sort of more blunt in his approach. But then again, yeah, and that takes us through the ending. So Jessie, the whole train finally like collides with the back of the other train, like it's been on the track, and then the army kind of jumps on, and Ben Kingsley has to make a quick decision right there, and he decides, he's like, okay, he plays Kolchak off to then make Kolchak think he's going to kill Jessie, but instead he kills Kolchak, and it works because he knows he's got to get the minute by minute. And if he stays with Kolchak, I don't think it's necessarily altruistic. I think that if he stays with Kolchak, how's he going to defend the army? The army will take him out. So he's could take him out, and he's got a little bit more, which again shows how smart Ben Kingsley's character is, because again, Kolchak was pretty naive to give him that gun. But I believe it.
I love the climax. I love the ending. I love when they wake up and it's just them. I felt so bad for Jessie when she almost fell off the train. 'Cause I was confused, like you when I first watched it, it's just like, whoa. And then, because she's a nervous wreck, she knows that she's still lying. She knows. And I really do think that Roy thought that she told him everything, because he was just like oblivious until they go up towards the front of the plane, and
Train.
Ben Kingsley's character and Kolchak, they're just sitting there, and I literally screamed because I knew something bad was gonna happen. And then next thing you know, we're at this abandoned military bunker. Like you said, Aunt Abby's getting tortured, like they're barefoot in the snow. That is pain. There's just so much. And you already touched on it, but I love the fact that with Kolchak, he just wanted to he wants to just kill them. Just, kill the man first. And it's just like, what? How is that going to make her talk? And I'm no criminal mind, but that's true. How would that make her talk? So there's that. And I felt really bad for Abby. I really did. Like that. She looked terrible. So then, I love the fact that even with Roy, he says to her, because they know that she's lying. He says to her, no matter what you tell him, which we touched on earlier, no matter what she would tell him, he would still love her. And I just thought that that was like really sweet. And it's like I was screaming at the screen, where, all right, fine, if you don't want to tell them, tell him. So yeah, that was such a great part. And it's just such a chase when they running in the snow, going back to the train. And I do believe it as well that Roy would be able to get the train to move because he's that fascinated in it. I was not expecting the collide, that happens. And the question that I had for you with Roy and Carlos, also dealing with Jessie, do you think, because when Jessie finally admits that she killed Carlos, Roy is knocked out. Do you think he heard her, or you
Oh,
think he
it's
didn't?
so funny that you asked that, because I just happened to read an article today. The way it was written, it suggested that maybe he did hear it. I
Hmm.
never thought that though for a second. I thought that he was genuinely knocked out. And I think the impression people get from that is because when they go to sign their like confessions or their statements to the government, and it's all in English, he kind of gives her a look, and I'm guessing whoever wrote this article was like thinking like, oh, he's giving her a look, like knowing that she's not being completely honest. No,
Mm,
I think the look is because they're defending Abby, and they're
right.
saying like he's having trouble, like, all right, I'm gonna sign this for this girl because I'm gonna take your word for it, which is then why she's all like, I need to see her, Roy. She's sort of like, I need to be firm about this because he might say no. I
Right.
don't think that he heard it. I think that he was knocked out, and I think that like that's why she felt
Hmm.
she could say the truth now.
Right.
But what did you get that impression, or what did you think?
I I thought that he was really knocked out,
Yeah,
because it's like he still seemed like he's just as in love with her. I
yeah,
think the only thing that he probably thought something happened between them, but between Carlos and Jessie, but he's willing to move on, because
yeah.
she's still there, accidents happen, but I don't know. It wasn't for me, it wasn't a look of you killed him. I know. It was, I think I thought it had something to do with Abby as well,
Yeah,
because I don't think that, Roy was really a fan of her, especially
right.
after everything that they gone through. Like, I think it was just more of like he just wasn't a fan of Abby, but I just think that would have been pretty interesting if he would have just kept that in
Sure.
the whole time. Like, we all have our secrets and, our faults and stuff.
I think well, he does say, we're in this now because of Abby, because and it's interesting because he's supposed to be the sort of like the children shall lead the way Christian leader. But when it comes down to it, he's like, it's her or us. We're in this because of Abby. Let's go. He's not stopping to make sure she's okay, which I think is a subtle commentary about like sort of religious hypocrisy. And I like that Jessie is the one who is like stopping and is like, she's the one who, when they're torturing Abby, Jessie is screaming. Jessie is completely empathetic to this girl, and she, it goes to where we go in the end, because no matter what Abby did, I don't think that she deserved what was happening to her. I think it's just terrible and awful. But I do like that, the movie does have sort of a happy ending for everybody. A happy ending for them where this child on the airplane, she's embracing, she's sort of like, it's okay. And she's closer to Roy now than ever. So I find it hard to believe that she wouldn't tell him at some point if he asked. She might not be like, hey, I'm going to tell you. But if he ever asked again, I think she would tell him the truth. But I do like that it's sort of not only a happy ending for them, but for Abby, it's not a happy sunshine lollipops ending, but she gets what she wants. She said she had this dream. She goes, Jessie, to Abby's hospital room and tells her what happened. And I like that too, that she's told Abby the truth so that Abby can hike out there, and she does. And I like that Jessie tells Roy, though, that what she told her was, which maybe she didn't tell Roy yet. And he doesn't know, because why would she not tell the truth? Which was, she tells that donut story. So I don't think she has told Roy. Like I said, I think what'll happen is what I said, which is she's not going to tell it unless Roy ever really asks what happened. But here in this moment, and that's why, what if he had overheard it, why wouldn't she just be like to Abby, hey, or what I told Abby was what I did with Carlos. So that's why I think he doesn't know. Sorry, I just figured it out. It came out awkwardly, but I just realized no, instead she tells him that Jessie told Abby the donut story, which is this great story about like keep your eye on the donut, not the hole or whatever. It's a cheesy little thing, and that's where their story ends. But really, what she told Abby was where Carlos's body is because he has the money on him. So Abby treks out there, and it looks like there's this moment she has of tenderness, but really, it's I think she's just sort of like she's happy she found the money. It's not the loss of Carlos, because I don't think he was that great of a guy to her, and clearly he lied to her. That's why they got split that night, because Abby went off because she didn't want anything to do with Carlos because she was pissed what he told Jessie.
I'm very happy for Abby. Just
Hmm.
maybe she can just go back to Seattle,
Yeah,
go back to
Seattle,
the
that's where it was.
US,
Yeah.
have a good time. You have money now. And now she doesn't have to deal with Carlos because I'm pretty sure he was a handful and she was probably trapped in it. So now you can be free and nobody has to know. You can have a whole new identity if you want.
Yeah.
But okay, this is gonna sound so weird. So I love that it's a great closeout. It is like a perfect ending. But a part of me was kind of hoping that some way, somehow, Jessie was kind of caught lying, like that Roy caught her, and that where it's just kind of like, okay, because she just kept on lying after just lying. I'm not saying that Jessie doesn't deserve a happy ending, but she just kept on lying. So okay, which I understand why she told Abby, but I think that you could tell Roy. So it's just like, I don't, why are you still lying even at the end? Like at
Right.
the point, at that point when it was ending, it was a happy ending and I'm happy, but it's like I was tired because I felt like it was my burden. Like imagine we're a friend group and I know and I can't say anything, so I just have to avoid them completely. I just have to
Yeah,
avoid
for sure,
everybody,
for sure.
you
No,
know?
I could totally understand that.
Yeah. And Roy. Roy is a good guy. I feel like he deserves to know the truth. He still stood. I feel like clearly I think he knows that something happened between them again. So it's just kind of like maybe he's just waiting for her to say something, with it. But yeah, overall, I did like the ending. It was a happy ending, especially because the opening of the movie, it starts with just someone dead and looking
Bleak.
terrible.
Yeah,
So, you
yeah,
know, it just starts off deadly. So it was like a very wholesome ending. And then even with, Abby, even though she has that criminal past and everything, it's just nice again to see that she finally has a win, and maybe she'll change over, like have a whole new change of leaves type of thing.
for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely would have liked to have seen Jessie come clean with Roy. What she may not have told Roy, but she did tell the truth to save Roy, which was to tell Ben Kingsley the truth.
But yeah, just a really awesome pick. Again, I had like such a good time with it.
I'm so
If you
glad.
want to have some anxiety,
Yeah.
watch this movie.
Yeah, I definitely think this is for the horror fans that are looking for a solid psychological thriller, some
Mhm.
claustrophobic settings, definitely a layered movie with a lot of psychological thrills. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Rabid Dog's House. Are you a fan of TransSiberian? What are some of your favorite late 2000s psychological thrillers? Thank you, Zena Dixon, the real queen of horror, for joining us tonight. As always, you can find Zena over at realqueenofhorror.com, on YouTube under her Real Queen of Horror moniker, or over at Wicked Horror. And I'm Justin. You can also find me at Wicked Horror, Horror Woman Pop Culture, or on Twitter at WKD Horror Justin. Thanks, Zena, for giving TransSiberian a watch. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me tonight, as always.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you all soon. Have a good one. Bye.